evidence that police say linked him to Thompson's death. So he was arraigned late last night on 5 relatively low-level state charges in Pennsylvania. Then prosecutors back in Manhattan charged Mangione with second-degree murder along with other crimes.
What are they saying about maybe a possible motive?
You know, we don't know yet why Mangione appeared to target Thompson so deliberately, but speaking yesterday, the NYPD's chief of detectives, Joseph Kenney, said Mangione was carrying a 3-page handwritten document that may have detailed some of his motives.
We don't think that there's any specific threats to other people mentioned in that document, but it does seem that he has some ill will toward corporate America.
And Mangione's writings on social media also include one post about the Unabomber, Ted Kaczynski. Mangione expresses fascination with some of Kaczynski's ideas, including the belief that political violence may be necessary.
Tell us more about Luigi Mangione. Where's he from?
They came from an affluent family with property and businesses in Maryland, well-educated, attended the private Gilman School in Baltimore, where he was valedictorian, and then he went to the University of Pennsylvania, studied computer science. A lot of his early social media posts show an apparently happy young man, a college student, an athlete who lived later in Hawaii. The path that led him from that life to this alleged shooting, that's still not clear.
Yeah, Louis, on social media, I mean, some people have essentially described Brian Thompson's killing as a kind of a justice in some kind because he worked for an insurance company that often sparked controversy by denying people's medical claims. I understand that Pennsylvania's governor spoke about that part of the public reaction. What did he have to say?
Yeah, that's right. Governor Josh Shapiro, a Democrat, said last night he understands the health insurance industry has enraged many Americans, but Shapiro blasted people who embraced what he described as vigilantes.
In some dark corners, this killer is being hailed as a hero. Hear me on this. He is no hero. The real hero in this story is the person who called 911 at McDonald's this morning.
Then Shapiro pointed out that Thompson was a husband, the father of 2 sons, just 50 years old at the time of his murder. Brian Thompson was buried yesterday in a private ceremony.
That's NPR's Brian Mann in New York. Brian, thank you.
Thank you.
With the deposed Syrian dictator Bashar al-Assad now exiled in Moscow, Syria's new leadership is still taking shape. That's in part because the rebels who toppled the regime are comprised of different groups. So now Russia, still heavily engaged in the war it launched on Ukraine, will also have to pay close attention to its interests in Syria and the broader Middle East. To hear more about those interests, we've called Sergei Radchenko. He is a professor of history at Johns Hopkins University in Bologna, Italy. Good morning, Professor.
Morning.
So I'm going to ask you to remind us how, or maybe why, Syria and Russia became close allies to begin with.
So that's a long story. It's a Cold War story. Syria was an important Soviet ally in the Middle East. From the early 1970s, the Soviets came to support the father of Bashar al-Assad, Hafez al-Assad, and basically stayed with the Syrians even through the end of the Cold War. And then later, Putin came in to rescue Bashar al-Assad in 2015 when his rule was very much under threat.
I was going to ask you about that because, Syria has been in the civil war for more than a decade. What role has Russia played in this? Are they offering material support, military support, intelligence?
Well, it was absolutely essential back 10 years ago when Assad was on the brink of being overthrown. The Russians came in and supported Assad with their military force. The Wagner Group was there on the ground. Remember the Wagner Group, headed by nefarious Yevgeny Prigozhin. They played a role there in sustaining Assad. And then the Russians also maintained their facilities. They have a naval base at a place called Tartus and also an air base at a place called Khmeimim.
So now that Russia is tied down in the war on Ukraine that it started, is there ongoing strategic importance of Syria for Russia and for Putin?
Well, what happened? Russia this time was simply unable to protect its client. Assad was overthrown, he fled to Russia, and that's of course a humiliation. But when people say that Russia has suffered a strategic defeat, I think the jury is still out on this because the Russians of course retain their assets in Syria for now. I mean, they have those bases, they have their troops there. If Russia is forced to withdraw from its bases, from the naval base and the airstrip that they hold in Syria, then this would definitely a strategic defeat and perhaps the end of Putin's ambitions in the Middle East. If, however, they hold on to those assets by, either bribing or threatening the new government, then perhaps they'll still have another chance.
Do we have any sense of what posture the rebels have toward Putin? I mean, I'm thinking about the fact that he has always backed Bashar al-Assad, as you've just described, who jailed political opponents, who used sarin gas on civilians. Now he's giving them asylum. Do we have any sense of whether Putin has been in communication with these rebel groups, or what their conversations have been like?
So there clearly has been something going on behind the scenes. Now, up to Bashar al-Assad's overthrow, Russia referred to the rebel groups as terrorists. In fact, just a few days ago, they helped the Syrian regime attack the rebel groups with airstrikes. However, just as soon as Assad was overthrown, the Russians changed their rhetoric and now just refer to them as armed Syrian opposition. They're clearly hoping to build bridges to the new leadership. And of course, Putin doesn't have any moral scruples. He can make deals with anybody. At the moment, he's very weak because, as you said, all of his energies are concentrated on Ukraine. So he will probably be willing to make as many concessions to the new Syrian government as they require of him, as long as the Russians are allowed to stay in Syria. Of course, he'll want to stay.
And what about that? Do we have any sense of what posture the rebels have toward Russia and toward Putin, especially regarding those two military bases that you just told us about?
Well, there was a report on the Russian media. I don't know how reliable that is. Russian media doesn't tend to be reliable, but apparently the Russian media in Syria reached out to representatives of the new government, and they said that they would keep those agreements with Russia that, quote-unquote, that serve Syria's interests. So that, as I said, the jury is still out. If Russia is kicked out from Syria, well, that would be the end of Putin's ambitions and Putin's so-called greatness, because that's, of course, his claims to greatness and global relevance rested in part on Russia's presence in the Middle East.
As briefly as you can, what about other Arab countries now that Putin's biggest ally in the region has been deposed?
Putin had, I guess he was seen as fairly powerful by many other regional players because he was able to protect Assad. But now Assad has been overthrown, and that shows Putin's weakness. I think many Arab states will understand this now.
Sergei Radchenko is a professor of history at Johns Hopkins University in Bologna, Italy. Professor Radchenko, thank you so much for sharing these insights with us.
Thank you for having me on the show.
There's a post-election power struggle happening in North Carolina. With the clock running down on the GOP supermajority, the legislature seeks to remove powers from the incoming Democratic governor. Some of those powers include appointments to an elections board and judgeships. Here's WUNC's Colin Campbell.
When the state Senate voted last week on what was originally touted as a bill to provide relief to victims of Tropical Storm Helene, protesters disrupted the proceedings. Lieutenant Governor Mark Robinson, presiding, quickly ordered all members of the public to leave the chamber.
Clear the gallery. Just clear the gallery. Everybody's got to go.
Protesters objected because parts of the bill have nothing to do with storm relief. It would also take powers from the governor, a Democrat, to appoint the board that oversees elections and give those powers to the state auditor, soon to be a Republican. GOP Senate Leader Phil Berger says the elections board is tilted to Democrats now.
We need to have balance on the board that is responsible for counting votes and making decisions about elections. The Democrats have said no, 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 hell no.
The bill does other things to weaken the governor's office, soon to be held by Democrat Josh Stein. It would take away some powers to appoint judges and to expand unemployment benefits. And it weakens the Attorney General and school superintendent, also soon to be newly elected Democrats. North Carolina is among a few states where Republican supermajorities regularly override vetoes by Democratic governors, and the Senate overrode this veto by Democratic Governor Roy Cooper. But Democratic Senator Mary Wills Bodie says the bill is unconstitutional.
This is an unprecedented move that disregards the will of the people. It's about vindictive, sore loser politics.
Republicans note that back in the 1980s, Democrats weakened the lieutenant governor's powers when a Republican won that office. Though the Senate overrode Cooper's veto, it could be closer when the House meets Wednesday. A few Republicans say the bill doesn't include any new money for storm relief. And the GOP lost seats in the election and won't have the veto override supermajority come January. For NPR News, I'm Colin Campbell in Raleigh, North Carolina.
Support for NPR comes from the station and from BritBox, dedicated to helping people unbox a world of British TV, with series starring Olivia Colman, Idris Elba, Sophie Turner, Matthew McFadden, and more. Streaming at BritBox.com/NPR. From Ooma, a cloud-based phone service for any size business, with an automated virtual receptionist, video meetings, and other features to connect to customers and coworkers anywhere. At Ooma.com/NPR. From BetterHelp, committed to supporting mental health through therapy. Clients are matched with one of 35,000 therapists and can communicate via video, chat, or phone at BetterHelp.com/public. And from listeners like you, donate to this NPR station.
It's Morning Edition on Chicago's NPR news station. It's 91.5 WBEZ. Good morning. I'm Mary Dixon. It's 8:24. Coming up in the news at 8:30, an indictment unsealed in Chicago charges 2 high-ranking Syrian officials with war crimes, and a downstate congressman testifies in the corruption trial of Michael Madigan. WBEZ is supported by the Griffin Museum of Science and Industry, presenting Notes to Neurons, an interactive sonic exploration of the science behind music's effect on the brain and body. Tickets at msichicago.org. And by American Islamic College, a Chicago-based institution of higher ed, welcoming students of all faiths and backgrounds and offering bachelor's and master's degree programs. Enrolling now at aicusa.edu. Weather today, cloudy and a high of 35 degrees. Traffic is very heavy on the inbound expressways, and southbound DuSable Lakeshore Drive is heavy from Lawrence to the Grand Avenue curve. Northbound delays from the Stevenson through Grand Park. This is the last day of our winter membership drive as we head into the holidays, and we hope this year to save us from tears, you will donate to someone special. I get so emotional when I think about this song. Heidi Goldfein and Patrick are here to tell us more about why we're the special ones. WBEZ, we are here and we are offering something really, really great for those of you who can consider becoming members this morning, and that is we are giving away a trip to Greece. 5 nights, round-trip airfare. You will be in Santorini for 3 nights. You will be in Athens for 2 nights. It's going to be an amazing, amazing experience. That's the incentive we have going right now on this, the very last morning of this winter membership drive. An incentive in and of itself. When you listen in tomorrow morning at 8:26, you will hear uninterrupted programming, and you will know that you've done your part to support the news and information that you care about. Takes about 3 minutes, 888-915-9239, or join us online, wbez.org/donate.
That incentive for a trip to Greece, it is doing what incentives are supposed to do. It is incentivizing. Thanks to everybody who's calling in this morning and donating. Anita in Burr Ridge donated and said the idea of not only donating to my favorite radio station, but also getting a chance to go back to Greece, where I got engaged many years ago, inspired me this morning. Brendan in Chicago said, Greece, baby. Maybe Brendan was thinking that would be like an Austin Powers accent. I'm sure Brendan wasn't thinking that. That's what I'm thinking right now for some reason. Anyway, be like Anita in Burr Ridge, Brendan in Chicago, and so many other people who are donating and getting in on this drawing. The phone number again is 888-915-9239. The website is wbez.org/donate.
All these incentives are because a more informed public is essential for a thriving community. And your contribution right now of any amount helps to inform our entire community here in Chicago and the suburbs in the entire Chicago region. WBEZ helps you really gain a deeper understanding of the world around us in a time when understanding the world around us is increasingly important. Become a member right now, wbez.org/donate.
Or you can call us 888-915-9239. Heidi mentioned this is our last day on air during this membership drive. We will not be cutting into programming tomorrow to remind you to donate to the station you love. And we've got about 125 $25,000 left to raise today on the last day of the split drive in order to meet our revenue target for this drive. But we started with a goal today. And when Heidi and I started talking this morning 2.5 hours ago, our goal was $155,000. Just to give you a sense of how much support we're getting this morning, it's amazing what's possible when you and your neighbors each step up. Now I'm calling on you to step up, help us keep this momentum going. The phone number is 888-915-9239. The website is wbez.org/donate.
Think about all the time you spend in your car commuting and how many hours are enriched by listening to WBEZ. Mary was just saying traffic is kind of a nightmare this morning. If you listened in your car this morning, if you know that you'll be listening in your car this afternoon, and you know that listening to WBEZ is going to enrich your life. It's like you're not wasting your time so much because you're learning something new. Become a member, support that, get your name in this crazy drawing for the trip to Greece, and do it this morning. 888-915-9239 or wbez.org/donate.
Yeah, you know, the way that this station is powered is people giving what they are able. Not everyone can give it the same amount, and we don't expect everyone to give it the same amount. We don't divide up how much we pay NPR and then go ask you to pay your share of it. Instead, we ask you to pay what you can afford, and that's different for different people. And a testament to that is we're getting so many different levels of support this morning, and it's so great to just see, we've got $200 for somebody, $60, $100, $20, $10, $25, $100. We had a $150 gift from somebody. It's people giving what they are able. All those numbers I just listed, they're attached to names, and those names are in a drawing to win a trip to Greece. Whatever you are able to give, please step up and give that amount, and maybe you can win this amazing trip. 888-915-9239.
wbez.org/donate. Take the opportunity now in this final morning of our winter membership drive. wbez.org/donate.
Live from NPR News in Washington, I'm Dave Mattingly. Murder is among the charges filed against 26-year-old Luigi Mangione, the man suspected of killing United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson. It happened last week in New York City. Mangione was arrested yesterday at a McDonald's restaurant in Altoona, Pennsylvania, more than 250 miles from the scene of the shooting outside a hotel in Midtown Manhattan. President Biden is expected to talk about the U.S. economy today when he speaks in Washington. NPR's Asma Khalid says the president wants credit for rebuilding the economy.
The president is trying to shore up his economic legacy. In remarks today, he intends to lay out how his administration delivered a strong recovery from the pandemic. The White House points out that during the Biden presidency, more than 16 million jobs were created, and they had the lowest average unemployment rate of any administration in the last 50 years. Hundreds of billions of dollars were also invested in clean energy and American manufacturing, an industrial policy the country hasn't seen in decades. But it will take years to see if those investments pay off. And in the meantime, the top economic priority for many Americans remains the high cost of living. Asma Khalid, NPR News.
On Wall Street, the Dow is down 86 points. This is NPR News.
32 degrees and cloudy skies at 8:31. I'm Mary Dixon with WBEZ News. An indictment unsealed yesterday in Chicago charges two high-ranking Syrian officials with war crimes. Former Syrian Air Force intelligence officers Jamil Hassan and Abdul Salam Mahmoud are charged in connection with a conspiracy to commit war crimes through the infliction of cruel and inhuman treatment on detainees under their control at a military airport near Damascus. Those detainees included U.S. citizens. Arrest warrants have been issued for both men who are at large. A sitting U.S. Congresswoman from Illinois made an appearance at the federal corruption trial of former Illinois House Speaker Michael Madigan. WBEZ's Dave McKinney explains.
Before joining Congress, Nikki Brzezinski was a senior advisor to Jamie Pritzker. She testified that she helped the governor vet as many as 1,500 applicants for high-level state positions. Brzezinski confirmed the governor's staff had a code name for Madigan when it came to cataloging his dozens of job asks. It was the Sphinx. Those requests are important in Madigan's trial. Prosecutors have him on tape offering to help government mole Danny Solis get a board appointment under Pritzker after Solis steered developers to Madigan's law firm for tax work. Brzezinski was asked if any job applicant got chosen because they'd paid or given benefits to Madigan. Absolutely not, she answered, adding that would be wrong. Reporting from the Dirksen Federal Building, Dave McKinney, WBBC News.
The Blackhawks beat the Rangers 2-1. Weather today cloudy and a high of 35.
Hey, it's Peter Sagal. Are you not sure what to do with your out-of-town relatives? How about a live taping of Wait, Wait, Don't Tell Me? Bring your aunt to the Studebaker Theater for a night she'll always refer to as, at the time we went to that thing. That was fun. For tickets, go to nprpresents.org.
WBEZ is supported by ABC Plumbing, Sewer, Heating, Cooling, and Electric. More information on service or new installations at 4abc.com. ABC, consider it done. Traffic, the inbound Kennedy, an hour 45 from O'Hare to downtown. It's an hour 20 from the junction. Inbound Eisenhower, an hour 5 from Route 390 to downtown. The rest of the expressways are showing heavy delays. Coming up, WBEZ's Arts Desk has curated a list of classic holiday events to enjoy around Chicago. That's coming up at 8:48 on 91.5 WBEZ.
Support for NPR comes from the station and from Workday. With AI at the core of its system, Workday is committed to delivering continuous innovation to prepare organizations for what's next. Workday, an enterprise platform for finance and HR rockstars. And from Total Wine & More, where customers can find gifts for people on their list. From a Cabernet to single barrel bourbon. TotalWine.com, spirits not sold in Virginia and North Carolina. Available to adults 21 or older. This is NPR.
It's Morning Edition from NPR News. I'm A. Martinez in Los Angeles, California.
And I'm Michelle Martin in Washington, D.C. Good morning. President-elect Trump's mass deportation plan was a prominent campaign pledge during his most recent run for office. But for a group of small towns in central Mississippi, it's not just an idea, it's a life-changing event. More than 700 migrants were arrested in workplace raids in the area the last time Trump was in office at chicken processing plants that form the backbone of the local economy. As NPR's Sergio Martinez Beltran reports, the memory of those raids still looms large.
Second-hand stuff spills across the sidewalk outside a small thrift store in downtown Morton, Mississippi. It's right across from the town's biggest employer, a chicken processing plant. There are interesting finds at this store, an old karaoke machine, a blue chest that looks like it came out of a pirate movie, and an orange chainsaw that Raymond Davila is inspecting closely. Suddenly, a noise pulls Davila's attention skyward.
Ahí arriba. Medical. That's a medical helicopter.
He says a border patrol helicopter sounds different. He always keeps an ear out. For the same reason, he says he always carries his birth certificate and social security card with him to his job at the chicken plant.
U.S. officials confirming some major ICE raids in Mississippi.
680 people rounded up by Immigrations and Customs Enforcement.
Operation targeted processing plants in half a dozen towns outside Jackson.
It was the morning of August 7th, 2019. 7 poultry plants in central Mississippi were raided by Immigration and Customs Enforcement, or ICE. 680 workers were taken away with no warning, more than half right here in Morton.
It was horrible. It was really horrible.
The memory of that day causes Brandy Freeman to pause her thrift shopping and tear up. Her partner is from Guatemala and in the country illegally. She tells us she worries he'll be caught in a new raid, leaving behind their 3-year-old son.
We talked about it. I got numbers that I could call, but I didn't have. It's a constant worry.
The events that day disrupted the lives of nearly everyone in town, including Kimberly Trujillo, who works at a dental office.
Well, I got to work. 30 minutes later, my phone starts blowing up.
Before the raid, Trujillo was an unofficial translator, helping her Spanish-speaking neighbors with English language paperwork. So the day of the raid, people called her for help.
There's been a raid at the chicken plant, and they took my wife or my husband. We need to find them. We don't know where they are. Can you help us?
She spent all day calling around trying to figure out where people had been taken to. Many ended up out of state.
It was a sad day. When I came home from work, my house was full of kids. I had 4 of my godkids at the house because their parents were taken.
This is what everybody remembers as being the worst part of the raids. It was the first day of school, and for the kids whose parents got detained by ICE, they returned to empty houses.
It was pretty frantic. I would say 2 days.
Scott County Sheriff Mike Lee has been critical of what went down that day.
I never want to make it as if I'm criticizing the men and women that work for ICE, but